said, listen, you already you gotta get it in. He said, oh no, so hopefully tomorrow morning, but hopefully once he submits it, doesn't take.
You'll have a job.
Having my emails I know. It is. Bring an email, 5 minutes.
Meeting will please come to order. Adequate notice of this meeting as required by the Open Public Meeting Act has been that on January 19th, 2023, a copy of the notice specifying the date, time, and location was posted on the bulletin board outside of Borough Hall, given to the clerk administrator, mailed, faxed, or emailed to the Courier News, and posted on the Borough website. If any member believes that this meeting is being held in violation of the Open Public Meeting Act, please state your views at this time. Hearing none. These proceedings are of a judicial nature. Proper judicial decorum must and will be followed. Next item, roll call, please.
Chairman Adair?
Here.
Mr. Allett?
Here.
Ms. Carpenter? Here. Mr. McLaughlin? Mr. O'Neill?
Here.
Mr. Widinsky?
Here.
Mr. Flores?
Here.
Mr. Alvarez?
Here.
Mr. Daniels?
Here.
We have a quorum. Would someone move that Morgan's absence be recorded as excused?
I will
Second.
Have a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Next item, pledge of allegiance. Pledge of allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It's not on the agenda, but we're going to yield the floor to Mr. Colin Driver for 5 minutes.
I'll try to keep it to 5 minutes. Thank you, Chairman.
That's a
For those of you who don't know me, I'm Colin Driver. I'm Director of Economic Development for the Borough. And next month you'll be moving to the new Civic Centre for all your meetings, which a little bit better circumstance than here. But we've arranged for parking in the parking deck owned by New Jersey Transit. And attached in these envelopes, that's you. Oh, good goodness, I don't know whether I want to give you one.
I have to walk.
Yeah.
That's right, Mark.
Morgan's not here.
Get
Rich O'Neill.
me therapy. One of my work down.
Who am I missing? Brian, Eric, and Stuart.
Thank you.
Now these are parking passes which operate only between Monday and Friday between the hours of 5:30 and 10:30. And I've given, there's directions in there that show you how to use it and all that. We've had a couple of glitches with the council where they let people in and then say you've got to pay to get out. So we're working on that. But we felt that it was a major accomplishment to work with New Jersey Transit to allow them to give us free parking for meetings. And why it's between Monday and Friday is we have a lot of meetings between Mondays and Fridays. So that I would ask that if you don't understand the directions we've given you, or that you have a problem, you reach out to me and we'll try and get them resolved. And that's really it. So it took like 2 minutes. Okay?
Got it.
Thank you.
Now, this is for parking, right?
This is parking in the deck
Park
at,
with an R.
what did I say?
It's that Australian accent.
You picking on my
No,
accent?
no, never do that.
Yes, you would.
Yeah.
Okay. But it's in the transit deck. You go up to level, they call it level 1, which is really bizarre because it's really level 2. But it's all signed. We've worked out with Everlong Road. I'll put signs, you can go up, show you how to get out. You walk behind the parking deck, under the arch, and into the new civic centre. So your next meeting, I believe, will be in there.
And November 8th. November 8th, I believe.
I believe it is, yeah.
November 1st, isn't it? For the board. Because we don't have a meeting on November 8th, and we don't meet in the usual mid-month because of the league.
Is it the first?
Usually
November
Thanksgiving.
the 1st is the next zoning board
You
meeting.
better just clarify that with Kevin, because it may not be ready on the 1st. All right, so coordinate, Jenna and I will coordinate that.
Carl, are you escorting everyone into the chambers from the parking lot?
I have my own key. Thank you.
Do I have to give back my key to this building now?
Tearing it down anyway.
Thank you, Mr. Driver. Okay. Next item on the agenda. Someone like to move for approval of the minutes of the last meeting?
So moved.
Move.
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Abstain. Okay. Resolutions. Someone like to move the resolutions? Resolution.
You done with the agenda?
Sure, I'll move, do you want to do both of them together or?
No, just do it individually.
Well, if we could, on 12 Lisa Terrace, if we could just tweak that a little bit. We had talked about doing the stormwater management first in the back before doing the driveway.
Also, the attorney for Blueprint is here as well. I would like to be heard in connection with the resolution.
Why don't we do that in the order that we do?
Still up now?
So do you want
Let's
to move the
let's
resolution?
table the resolution until
Okay.
Kevin can make his presentation. Someone here for that resolution?
For Blueprint? Yes, the first of the two resolutions is Blueprint Mental Health. As the board is aware, we submitted this the last time, but there are additional revisions needed to be made, which have been made. The board has received copies of the revised resolution, which I believe accurately depicts what was set forth in the transcript of the meeting. The applicant's counsel would like to be heard with respect to certain restrictions in the resolution or in the application. I have indicated, and I'll be happy to address the issue. If an amendment of the application is required, it's going to be a full-scale application on notice to the public. This really shouldn't be done at the resolution stage.
What's the problem?
Hmm?
There appears to be an undercurrent here. What's going on?
Yeah, I can explain that. John Sullivan from the offices of Vestal and Sullivan representing the applicant. I have Mr. Mopper here with me, who is the principal of the applicant. We had two concerns with the resolution. The original form of resolution we didn't particularly have a concern with, but I understand that was tabled at the last meeting or perhaps the meeting before that, and a new resolution was presented to the board. And we had a couple of concerns with that, and Mr. Gibbons and I have been in touch. He and Jenna were nice enough to provide me with the transcript, so we had an opportunity to read through it. So really two issues. One was the prohibition against weekend hours. And going through the transcript, Mr. Mopper clearly mentioned several times that they don't do weekend hours. And also reading the transcript, I think it was pretty clear that that was going to be a condition of the resolution. Mr. Mopper did not understand that to be a prohibition against weekend hours in perpetuity. So he wanted to essentially correct the record on that and ask the board to reconsider that issue. The second issue had to do with the restriction in the resolution, which stated that during the group sessions, there could be no individual therapy sessions. In reviewing the transcript, I know we discussed that very, very briefly. I didn't see, or I didn't understand that the board had come to a conclusion on that particular issue. But we'd also like to be heard on that, in terms of allowing individual therapy sessions to occur while we're doing a group session. And I have Mr. Mopper here who can certainly speak to that, but I think procedurally, the board would have to decide whether or not we can do that tonight or whether we have to come back.
That's correct.
When the conditions, I wasn't at the meeting, I did look at it on television. At the end of the hearing, the conditions, were those conditions inserted or did they just appear?
The no parking, the no weekend,
Right, no,
I think was clearly stated as a condition.
They were in the record.
Right.
Okay.
The other one, I just didn't read the transcript, and I don't remember from the hearing that it was very clear on that issue. And I think that's something that was discussed very briefly, but I think it does bear further discussion.
I'll represent to the board that both of those matters were considered and determined by the board based upon the information in the transcript. So this would essentially be, in my opinion, I don't want to be too much of a problem, but I mean, procedurally, this is a material amendment to change to weekend hours. First of all, it's very much a material amendment, and to change the approach to individual therapy during a time of group therapy. Our material changes both, the material therapy, the individual, having individual therapy sessions while a group therapy session goes on is really, in a sense, requires a reassessment of the parking situation for the application. And so we would probably have to reconsider that. And in connection with the weekend hours, I mean, that was expressly, both of these matters were expressly in the record. So the board approves what's in the record. The board cannot insert or matters in the record that are not in. It can't, for example, I can't put in conditions that aren't in the record. And just at the same time, the applicant can't enter testimony later on, backfill the testimony. So again, I'm not casting aspersion on anybody. The problem is that they would have to come back for an amended application. The problem too is we're not dealing with minor de minimis issues. Weekend activity is a major change over there, as would be having group therapy and individual therapy. The board addressed both of those issues, and if you recall, Mr. Cole, I think, will confirm this. I know he discussed the parking issues in his report, and also, on the record in chief. And so I think what's got to be done here is that the applicant may have to make a subsequent application to amend the approval for essentially an amended site plan approval. Amended approval to make these, have these items approved by the board, and therefore essentially as part of the activity approved pursuant to the application.
Do we have access to the transcript when the board was discussing it and put down the stipulations? Do we have that available to us now?
Now we do, but not during the meeting.
I'm talking about, is it available now for us to hear what exactly transpired?
Yes.
Why don't we go through that and just go through it? And I don't know,
I know that the transcript was reviewed in detail.
Can we hear it now?
Everybody have it?
I don't have a copy of the transcript with me.
The transcript, Rich, is like 135.
I'm not looking for it, I'm just looking for the tail end when he's going over the stipulations. I don't care about.
Well, that was before, frankly, the Saturday hours, the weekend hours were addressed early in the transcript. That was an issue.
I don't care when they were addressed. I'm asking at the end when everybody was discussing what's going to go into the resolution. That's the very tail end of the hearing. What was said?
That's what was said. I mean, and we don't necessarily always, we sometimes discuss conditions in the course of the application.
Yeah, that's what I'm
And
asking.
they're not necessarily at the end.
Most times,
Well,
but at the end, we do go through item by item by item. I mean, I think we're pretty good at doing that. And I'm just asking what was said. That's all. And I'm not, if I had known this was gonna transpire, I would have had it with me. I'm just curious. I don't wanna sit here and decide something that I don't know anything about.
I thought he was adamant that maybe once, one weekend a year, they would have a group, not even a therapy thing, they would have a get-together.
I just wanna see what was actually said in the transcript. That's,
I think regarding the weekend hours, he was talking about an open house or something.
Right.
And that was the extent of the weekend hours. I understand what the applicant is saying. He's looking for flexibility, and I get that.
May I speak? Is that okay?
Keep going ahead, yeah.
Thank you.
why don't we swear him in? Please state, you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be the truth, so help you God.
Yes.
Please state your name and spell your last name for the record.
John Mopper, M-O-P-P-E-R.
Thank you very much. Counsel?
So Mr. Mopper, having reviewed the transcript, it was clear in your testimony that you had indicated that you don't have weekend hours now, and you weren't planning on them, once this application is approved. And so it's your understanding that, that when you said that, you didn't think it would be a condition that would be in perpetuity. And can you explain to the board, what your testimony was and what your concerns are with that?
Sure. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Honestly, I misunderstood. First time kind of going through a process like this. If you look at our initial application actually had weekend hours listed. Because we were operating on the weekend for some time. But in between the time of putting in the application and the time of going back before the board, we reduced our weekend hours just because we had clinicians that didn't want to work on the weekends anymore. So during my testimony, you asked, do you have weekend hours? No. Do you have plans of having weekend hours? At the time, no. I didn't know that that was going to lead to a resolution that made it so that I can never then have weekend hours again. And that
would have been incumbent upon your attorney, something to interpret that
A
for you.
condition of every approval is that all representation, applicants shall be bound by all representations made in testimony and set forth on the record. So your statements in testimony frankly supersede whatever you may have had in your written materials.
I don't really, I understand, if I continue though. I have 3 other mental health practices as competitors that are in this area. One of them being Olive Branch Mental Health that works Saturday and Sunday from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. right on East Cliff Street. I have a new franchised mental health practice coming in called Ellie that has 50 locations that are offering weekend hours. There may come a time for my practice, in order to survive, I might need to have weekend hours down the road. And we have them before. And being that we're closing off the back to Cayman Place, I don't see how having weekend hours on West End Avenue impacts really anything or anyone in a negative way.
You have to make a formal application. I think you really would have to make a formal application to change that. Because what we had voted on was what you presented. And I know when we go through the conditions, we're very clear about that.
that's what I want to see. I want to see the conditions in the transcript. What was that?
Because I do remember him saying something about an open house maybe once a year.
Yes.
Right,
Yeah,
that's
we
going
used
back.
But we also,
Backspace.
but we also indicate that representations made on the record by the applicant. So if the applicant happens to say, I'm not gonna do this, then that binds the applicant. Whether it's enumerated as a condition or not. You will note in the resolutions I provide to you that sometimes those things are placed in there because it may not be specifically in our discussion at the end of the meeting, but it's in the transcript in the course of what we're doing, and so it is added as a condition.
I'm not arguing, I just want to.
I'm not either, this is,
Yeah, we're not here to mislead you on this particular issue. The transcript's very clear. He did say no weekend hours. Mr. McLaughlin, I believe, had stated it as a condition prior to the vote, no weekend hours. So, I mean, the transcript's clear. It was really a misunderstanding on Mr. Mopper's part.
And if I could speak to the group and the individual sessions going on at the same time, that resolution says that there's a group therapy session going on, that I can't have any other individual sessions going on at the same time.
Yeah.
Now, if I have a group, a max group, which we set at 10, which is fair and clinically appropriate, and all 10 people drive and choose to stay in that parking lot, I still have 7 other parking spaces left. And there is plenty of street parking on West End Avenue that's also available. So what if only 3 people show up for a group, right? And now I'm shutting down the rest of my building because there's 3 people in my parking lot. That just won't work. It doesn't seem to make sense to me. And that part in the transcripts is not clear. It was something that we definitely kind of glossed over pretty quickly.
So Cliff, if we.
well, my recollection is a little different than yours, but I mean, certainly it's something the board can consider. And again, if it's go ahead,
I was gonna say, I don't think you need to agree with the application if you consider it. Right?
yeah, then you have to do it, the neighbors would have to have the opportunity to participate.
To keep this moving forward, I think where the Vice Chairman's going is, can we approve this so he can get construction permits, and then he can amend these 2 conditions, because the audience was there. A lot of residents were very happy with the no weekends. They were very happy.
Yes.
So they I'm sure are going to chime in on this. But to keep the applicant moving forward is what the Vice Chairman is saying here is, can we agree to approve this as is or very close to it, and then amend it so that you can keep moving?
Sure.
That would be the right way to do it, frankly. If you have objectors, and someone tried to come in and perhaps challenge it, the fact is we're, in this profession called, we're turning square corners. So, you know, what you're doing is defensible and it would be very hard to attack it on appeal. If we just kind of threw it in now, you can, with you could very easily be overturned.
I understand. And I think that's probably the right
We can go ahead and look at the transcript again and see if something was either misinterpreted on our end. It happens.
Understood. And if I may, the residents were extremely happy. It wasn't the weekend hours. It was the fact that we were closing off the access to Cayman. That's what it was about.
Well,
And
That's true, but the public still needs an
I
opportunity.
understand. I'm just going on record.
Yeah, and then we can thoroughly discuss the 10 units. I agree, the transcript is not like 3 pages on the group session 10. I agree, and then we can beat that up to get something that's acceptable to everyone.
I appreciate it, guys. I said I'm just a small business owner. I started this practice in a walk-in closet here in town.
I understand.
And just, you know, I'm just trying to make my way, and it's becoming really difficult.
Well, we can approve this as it's presented now, and you can, you know, come back.
That sounds like a plan.
We can do that.
That acceptable to everybody?
Yes.
All right, then I think under the circumstances, then, I mean, we very thoroughly have, the resolution has been very meticulously prepared, and we very thoroughly have gone through the transcript. I don't think there's anything we left out. I don't want to sound, you know, smug or anything, but Mr. Cole and I really were very persnickety in going over what went on.
And if the board's okay with this, I would amend the application for these 2 items. I'd rather not prepare a report. I'd rather just bring it to the noticing. So if the board's okay with that, I could do a report, but I'm trying not to spend time on that. But these are the 2 issues that I'm sure we could discuss with the public. Right, I'm just saying, get the noticing out and,
So the notice is gonna say what?
it'll be.
The notice would be to amend the 2 conditions of approval. You know, first of all, to have weekend hours, and the other one to be permitted to have individual sessions on site when group sessions are being held.
I would hope the application would propose something. Okay, we're gonna have up to 10, and we're gonna have up
Right.
to 3 offices, something. I would hope that
I
we
would be
would propose
specific.
something, and then the board could have his proposal and discuss that with the public. I don't think you need a report from me on this.
I would also be restrained, don't put yourself in a position
Right.
where, you're gonna have a 10-person session and have 5 other sessions going on. I mean, that's gonna get you very close to, to trouble.
Understood. It still would accommodate, our parking lot still would accommodate that.
Right.
But I hear you, I understand what you're saying.
No, I mean, it's tough. I have to be the bad guy sometimes, well, that's what I'm doing here. But, it works 2 ways, because if you bring the application to amend and come back, then you're on all 4s. I mean, that's it's done. I mean, it's a shame it didn't get done during the period of the hearing. I mean, that was a pretty intensive hearing. We had a lot of comment from the public. But you want to make sure if you're going to do this, you do it right.
First time.
Right.
Hopefully the last.
No, I understand. I have a lot of in my development practice, I have a lot of first-time applicants. I always make sure that, we try to cover those things.
Listen, I watched it on television, I missed the meeting, am I eligible to vote?
Yes.
Yes. If you need, you'll sign a certification that says you observed the hearing. Then you're more than eligible.
Well, I'm signing like in a hotel room working.
Oh, no, you're absolutely right.
That's what you're watching, Rich, that's what.
Wait till we see the credit.
If that's what you were watching, it's free. God bless you, it's free.
You're a hell of a man. Okay, so we have the resolution.
You want to make a motion to approve the resolution?
Yeah, you withdrew it, right?
But I'll move the resolution.
Moved,
I'll second.
second. Roll call, please.
Roll call, please.
Chairman Adair?
Yes.
Ms. Carpenex?
Yes.
Mr. Flores?
Yes.
Mr. Alvarez?
Yes.
Mr. Daniels?
Yes.
And Mr. McLaughlin?
Yes.
Hey, thank you very much. Have a good night, everybody.
Next resolution.
Next resolution is
12 Lisa Terrace.
Jeffrey Martinez, 12 Lisa Terrace. This is a little more candidly straightforward. Mr. I'm also going to make a change to the back end of the resolution. Indicating that the applicant has the duty to publish notification of the approval, etc. I'll change the language for future resolutions.
I just want to drill down with a sentence or two saying that the stormwater management has to be addressed first prior to installing the driveway, so it's clear. And we said in the record that if the drainage doesn't work, gravity doesn't work, he's gonna come back to the board. I just don't wanna make sure it's clear that the stormwater and the flooding issue or the runoff gets addressed as priority number 1. And secondly, the trees, I do believe the board gave him the option either to put the street trees in or make the contribution to the the environmental conditions. Yes, the front lawn was great, but it was his option, there's 2 trees missing, either to plant them or to make the financial contribution. So I just want to cut those 2 sentences and what's listed about publication. That's what I want to add to the draft resolution.
So it's clear, plant the 2 trees or pay water.
So he has the option, and to make sure it's clear that we're gonna work together to address the stormwater management prior to doing any more site construction activities, to address the neighbors' issues.
Well, it makes sense because, we did have an issue. I understand because one of the reasons this ended up in front of us is because work took place without permits.
Right.
So, I think that Mr. Cole's comments are very pertinent.
Someone like to move it?
As amended by the statements made by
Move it as amended.
Mr. Cole on the record.
Ed, someone want a second?
I'll second it.
Moving to second, any discussion? Roll call, please.
Chairman Mangiare?
Yes.
Mr. Allett?
Yes.
Ms. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Mr. Vidinsky?
Yes.
Mr. Flores?
Okay, next, land use applications. There you have it.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Kara Kaczynski. I'm with the law firm of McNally, Arrows, Kaczynski, and Lime. And this is my second time before you. First time was via Zoom, so my first time in person. So happy to be here, and thank you for the opportunity. I'm here tonight representing 14 Fairview Avenue, LLC. They are the owner and the applicant with regard to this application. And interestingly enough, the property at issue is 14 Fairview Avenue. That's block 51, lot 21, and it's within the borough's single-family R3 district. The application, as you can see, proposes to demolish the existing auto body shop and construct a duplex. And you'll see we have some elevations to show you tonight, and we'll be able to show you aesthetically what this is going to look like, and we're hoping that you're going to be as pleased with it as we are. The duplex will have parking beneath the dwellings, a living room, a dining room, and a kitchen on the second floor, and 3 bedrooms on the third floor. And this particular use is permitted in the borough's R3 district. The use of the property as a 2-family dwelling duplex, as opposed to the existing auto body shop, will bring the property into compliance with the borough zoning ordinance. And that's extremely important. We represent you. And I'll touch on that a little bit later as well. The R3 zone is largely residential and does not permit any commercial uses such as the current use and prior use of the property. So originally, by way of the application, the development required 6 variances. After review of Mr. Cole's report, we understood exactly what it is that would need to be done in order to bring the development into more compliance with your ordinance, and we've agreed to do that. So all we're asking for tonight is approval of a variance from the permitted number of stories in the R3 district. 2.5 are allowed, 3 are proposed, and that is solely because of the need for the parking on the first floor. We're trying to make sure we comply with parking. We know parking is a big issue in the borough, so we're putting parking beneath what we're going to call the second story of the building, and then there's 2 living stories, which brings you to 3, as opposed to the 2.5. But what's important here is, even though we need a variance from the number of stories, we're still complying with the maximum height requirements in that zone. Your max is 35, we're at 33.25.
This is a C.
Correct.
variance, so it's opposed to a D height variance.
Correct, absolutely.
Right.
Council is 100% correct. The other variance that we need is from your minimum side yard setback requirements. In that zone, you need 0 per one side, but 20 combined for both sides. We're proposing 19.3. So we do need a variance for that 0.7 feet deviation. But again, this is an improvement over what's there now. You're basically lot line to lot line for what's there right now. So we're actually definitely improving not only the use of the property, but the side yard setbacks. So we have this presentation here before you tonight. We submit that you're going to find and be able to make a determination that this is a substantial and beneficial improvement of the property. Because of those reasons, it also improves the existing rear yard setback and the existing impervious coverage, while again complying with the uses that are required by that are permitted by your ordinance. We have 2 witnesses here tonight. One is Venkat Talasala. I knew I was going to do that. I apologize. And the other is our architect, Charles Isiofia. So I believe, Mr. Gibbons, that all necessary proofs of notice and publication are
Yes, I believe
provided.
everything has been determined in order,
Perfect.
determined to be in order.
Do we need to
After
mark
swearing your
anything?
first witness, whenever you're ready.
Okay, do we need to mark the application or anything, or just any additional exhibits that we're bringing to the board?
Anything you're bringing tonight that's not in your package,
Okay.
you're gonna need to bring in as evidence, otherwise it's all of a piece with the application issues. So-
Perfect, thank you. Okay, so with that, I'll call my first witness. Come on.
Good evening, sir. Would you raise your right hand? You solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be the truth, so help you God.
Yes.
Please state your name and spell your last name for the record.
Venkat Alasila, Talasila.
Very good, sir. Ms. Kuczynski, your witness.
Thank you. One tip.
Okay, Mr. Velasco, what's your relationship to the applicant LLC?
I'm partner of LLC
And when did Fairview purchase the property?
in 2016.
And how is it being used when it was purchased?
Nothing, it is same as right now, it is a vacant property and there is an existing building, but it's not used.
And how was it previously utilized?
It was, I believe it is a body shop. Yes.
And to your knowledge, is the auto body shop permitted in the R3 zone?
It is,
According to the current ordinance?
yes.
It is currently permitted, that commercial use is currently permitted? And if you don't know, that's fine. You
I'm
can
not
say-
sure.
Okay, that's fine. How do you intend to develop your property?
We want to demolish the existing structure, body shop, and then build a two-story plus one.
And the application and the plans that we've submitted to the board show exactly how you're looking to do that.
Yes,
You and I have been working together for a long time on this project, correct?
that's correct.
It's taken a while to get it back here before the board. We've made some changes since it was first filed,
Yes, we made a lot of changes.
and we made some improvements.
Improvements and making sure that everything we are in comply with the things.
Right. And most recently, the board engineer and planner issued a letter, and that would be the October 11th, 2023 letter, and it had some, outlining some variances that we need, correct?
Yes,
And after that, we spoke and we discussed changing the plans to address those variances.
yes, we addressed some of the variances like we said earlier, and we comply with those things and we brought in other things for the variance.
Okay, so just for purposes of the record, are you willing to reduce the height of the fence in the front yard to 4 feet?
Yes,
And that would
Yeah.
comply with the ordinance?
yes.
And also to make sure that it is a maximum of 60% solid, correct?
Yeah,
And are you also willing to reduce the width of the driveway from 12 feet to 10 feet?
absolutely, yes.
And the lighting, there was an issue with the foot candles. Are you willing to do whatever's necessary to the satisfaction of the board engineer
Yes,
to make sure that the foot candles don't exceed 0.5 at the property line?
yes,
And you're willing to amend the lighting plan, again, there's what they call the uniformity ratio, cannot exceed 4 to 1. You're willing to, again, do whatever's necessary to make sure it's in compliance.
yes.
So the only variances that we need is, as I said in my opening, was number of stories and the side yard setback.
That's good.
And the parking underneath the proposed units, that's the reason for the story variance.
That's
correct?
good, yeah.
There will be no living space on that first
No,
story.
on the parking space, no living space.
The living spaces are only on the second
The
and
second
third
floor and
stories.
third floor, yeah.
And to your understanding, are we improving the side yard setbacks by the new dwellings that we're putting on the property?
Yes, yes, we are improving with that.
Okay.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. You said the living spaces will all be on the second and third, or just the second floor?
Second and third.
Okay, very good.
Mr. Cole's letter also had a number of recommendations and plan changes that he was requested, correct?
Correct.
And are you willing to comply with all of those?
Yes,
And your architect's gonna go into it a little bit in more detail. You're willing to revise those plans to incorporate that information. One of the issues that was addressed was the need for stormwater management. Did we discuss that before tonight?
yeah. When we have actually approached one of the architects, Parker Associates, and we are trying to see what we can do. Yes, we will comply and we comply with what the board suggests.
Okay, so you approached an architect, or you approached your engineer surveyor?
Yes.
Okay, and whatever it is that the board engineer needs or he outlined, you're willing to make sure to take care of. Okay. The board engineer had a question in his letter regarding interior finishes for the units. Have you made any decisions regarding that yet?
No, actually, we didn't make any determination about interior, but whatever we have, we will comply with others.
And that'll be probably at the time of construction, Lauren.
Right, yes.
And if the board engineer has any questions or input that he'd like to have, you're willing to take that into advisement and do what's necessary.
Yes, yes.
There was a question with regard to attics. Will there be an accessible attic in each unit?
No, there is an attic, but accessible attic, but not full-on attic.
Okay, so any living space up there?
No,
Okay, so used basically for what?
just for regular.
Christmas trees or other
Yeah.
storage and things like
Just for
that?
storage?
Okay, are the sizes of the dwellings depicted on the plans?
Yes.
And we'll have our architect go through that. Just a couple other things that Mr. Cole outlined in his letter I want to address. The AC, the air conditioning compressors are fairly close to the property line. Are you aware that there's a state noise requirement that you cannot exceed a certain decibel level of the property line?
Yes, we will comply with whatever is required to for the noise.
Okay, so if we need to do a post-construction noise test, you'd be willing to do that?
Yes,
And if it's too loud, you'll work with the board engineer to put some screening or fencing or
Yes.
something around it to mitigate the noise?
Yep.
Are you gonna rent or sell these units?
we are thinking of renting, we will rent it.
Okay, you want the flexibility to do either.
Yeah, either. And probably I am almost 58 right now, so end of the day I have done so is my current home and probably I move here.
There you go, you wanna make sure they look very nice, then, right? Okay,
And then end of the day I have to downsize myself, right?
there you go. Just a couple other questions. When you purchased the property, did you look into whether or not there was any, Department of Environmental Protection case open?
Yeah, we checked for it, but we didn't find any case on the.
Okay, and if during construction you find some soil contamination or groundwater contamination, you would deal with that as the state law requires?
Absolutely, yes.
I think that's actually all the questions I have for him, Mr. Chairman.
Does anybody from the board have any questions of the testimony just given?
Mike, what's your concern about the interior finishes?
Just nothing to give the color of the board, so you understand the aesthetics, what's going on with the structure, that's it. Just to paint the picture of what's the envision here, what's vision for a two-family.
Yeah, I wanted to get clarification from you. When we say 2.5 stories, what is a half story?
Michael?
There's a definition in the Borough Land Development Ordinance on what a half story is
Versus a 1 story.
versus a 3-story. 2.5, depends on the knee wall and the percentage of space in the attic versus the floor below. There's
Bottom
a
line is, I
calculation.
can stand up and you can't.
Okay. So a half story would be like a dormer area.
Yeah.
Where it's
Yeah.
dormer, you can't go to this side.
There's a calculation in the knee walls. Typically in the attic, you have the sloping roofs, you have the knee wall at 3-4 feet. You calculate that area above the knee wall versus the lower one. It's over a certain percentage, it's a story, not a half story, per the borough ordinance. In this case, he's definitely a 3-story because of the garage on the first floor, but the height complies. So we are all in agreement that that's a C variance, not a D. Because and he's actually lower. What is being represented is 33 feet. That's to the pitch on the slope roof. It's halfway up, so it's actually less than 33. So the height definitely complies with the zone, but the stories does not. So
That's
that's
not a 10 feet or 10% situation.
right. So
We're D variance, you can't.
he's here because he's site plan exempt, so he's not from the planning board, but he's here for C variances because it's represented as a permitted use in the zone. So, and basically, what Kara is saying is that they will comply with all the nuts and bolts of the application, which means, so we can work that out, should the board approve this on the back end, to make sure the impacts are addressed, is what the testimony is.
Michael did a very in-depth definition or paper definition of a half story about 10 years ago on a Cliff
Yeah.
Street application. Pull that out for
It's gonna come up in the next application too, the same thing with the half story, not just for the purposes of whether they need that variance relief. So this came up just to make sure the transcript and testimony is accurate of what's going on.
I think what's deceptive here, and I don't mean that, like trying to trick anybody, that picture looks like it's out in the country. Where that place is not out in the country.
It's very
Just so we understand what we're looking at.
Right, and I actually had the pleasure of driving by the site today. Huh?
It will be a pleasure, hopefully.
Well, it was a pleasure for me because I actually would like to see a two-family residence on that street as opposed to a business. So,
Yeah.
the pleasure to see the applicant can submit something where we can bring in some families is good. So that's why it's a pleasure. But so where the building is now, is that where the three car garage, is that where the driving lot is going to be? Is it going to be on the left side?
I can have the architect go through that in the next
Oh,
plans.
okay.
Unless this is something you'd like to.
No, that's it.
Mr. Daniels, you're never in trouble being kind, so.
Okay.
That's the lesson we all learned a long time ago. Go
Just
right
don't hear
ahead.
much of it.
No.
Anybody else from the board have any questions on the testimony? Anyone from the audience have any questions on the testimony just given?
We did there. This is the architect.
You just said it and I didn't hear it.
We did, I'll get it.
Harry, your witness is gonna stick around, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, thank you very much. My next witness is Mr. Charles Isiofia. Am I saying that right?
Yes.
Come on, come have a seat. Just gonna swear you in.
Okay, you should raise your right hand. You solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be the truth self.
Yes.
Please state your name and spell your last name for the record.
My first name is Charles. My last name is Isiofia spelled I-S-I-O-F like Frank. I-A. Isiofia.
I wasn't too far off.
Thank you very much for being so specific.
Thanks.
Okay, Shinsky, you're witness here.
Okay, Mr. Isiofia, can you please give the board the benefit of your education and experience?
I'm a licensed architect. New Jersey, New York, Maryland, and state of Pennsylvania. I've been in practice since 2000. I've had a stint with the New York City agency, Design and Construction, for about 12 years. Before I retired, I started working on my own. I work with a Duncan Architecture and Exodus Architecture.
Have you appeared before any planning or zoning boards locally?
Yes, sir.
Could you name three?
I've appeared at Newark. I've appeared yesterday at Arlington. I've appeared at East Orange.
Okay.
So
now you're out in the country.
And just for the record, your license is still in good standing,
Yes.
and you have been accepted as an expert in front of the boards that you just mentioned?
Yes.
Yeah, well accepted.
Wonderful, thank you. Okay, were you hired by the applicant in connection with this matter?
Yes. Far back as 2020.
It's been going on for a while, right? Yeah, it's been going on for a while. And you prepared architectural plans for the application?
Yes, I did.
And those plans were presented to the board?
Yes, I did.
Would you like to go through the elevation first, which we'll need to mark as an exhibit, or would you like to go through your plans first?
Can I walk over there?
Absolutely. If you want to give them a pretty picture of what it's going to look like first, that's fine, or if you'd like to go right to your plans and describe them, it's up to you.
What we have here is a one-story building, 20 feet setback from the lot line.
Okay, and was that part of your plan submission to the board, the colorized version?
This,
Yes.
the material wise,
Yeah, the colors. Has the board seen this in color?
yes, this is rendered product. This is the closest we can come to this color. This is beige honey black.
You submitted this with your application?
This is an updated, refreshed rendering.
Okay, so why don't we just mark it?
I was gonna say, let's just to be
Yeah.
on the safe side of the market, applicants A1 in evidence.
And the trees are new as suggested by the borough engineer.
Okay,
And this is the
and just so the record's clear, so we'll mark this A1, and this is a colorized elevation
yes.
of what the proposed duplex will look like.
Yes, proposed, yes.
So go ahead, why don't you talk about what it's gonna look like, the materials, because I know the board's concerned and would like to see what this is gonna look like on the street.
This is a two-family duplex structure. Duplex structure are usually two families contained on its own, but have a separation, a vertical wall separation starting from the foundation to the pitch, so that it's a complete fire separation. It's really a life safety issue. On the first floor, on entrance level, we needed 4 car parking spaces for new residential development, site development requirements. So we need 4 cars. So we had 2 cars, four cars, 2 per dwelling unit. So in order to accommodate that properly, we had to store it under the on the entrance level, and then have the living accommodation, chemical levels at 2nd floor and 3rd floor. Apart from the garage, we have the HVAC, other service support, service facilities on the garage level. On the 1st floor of the garage is the living room, with the kitchen, and dining. It's a spacious, open space plan. On the 4th floor, are bedrooms only, with 2 bathrooms. The windows, casement windows, the dividers, and then the roof. I can go into the plan and show you precisely how the spaces work.
Please.
The site plan, the proposed site plan, the drive entrance of phase B, to the garage underneath, the sidewalk, and sidewalk on the west wall. We have utility, the condenser we are talking about, and the meters against the wall.
What are the sizes of the units?
The size of each unit is about 1498.5 square feet. That's a count 4, 9, excuse me please.
1498.
498 with 9 square foot, yeah. It repeats on the other side. And on the front floor, 4%, the second on the first floor.
Okay, we're looking at what page of your drawing.
This is page A100.
Okay,
It has the first floor plan, the second floor plan, and the third floor plan. The third floor plan is the off-street parking use, the 2 cars per unit. And then from there, on facing the street, you can access from the front door, this front door. Or the park your car, then get through the staircase. I come over here to the living room, dining and kitchen. There's an open plan for the middle space by way of not having any some walls, making some tight space. It's way open, so you can appreciate the space. Above it is the bedrooms. 3 bedrooms on either side, full bathrooms, and closet to each bedroom.
And is that the same for both units, both on each side?
It's a mirror of each other.
There was a question in the engineer's report about the type of construction. This is going to employ 5A construction?
This is a 5A construction.
Can you just
Explain it.
You're way ahead of me, Mr. Chairman. Can you explain for the 45 minutes?
5A are usually frame construction. It's mostly your start and then finish, outside and inside. Mostly any material that is present to your perception, like the hardy board. But the inside, apart from the insulation, the rest of them, you have a finished interior wall, gypsum board, or whatever you want to put on the gypsum board that is code compliant.
So will there be adequate fire rating to comply with the 5A construction?
Yes and no, it depends. In this case, where we have a separation between 2 dwelling units, and the separation is as a result of fire. Like I said, it's a fire safety issue. So there must be total demarcation. It's a demising petition. No piers, nothing, no openings. And that is that's going to be accomplished by this wall here. It's continuous.
Are you proposing any sprinklers?
Yes, we have to. Each time, from what I know, each time a living space, a habitable space, is 6 feet above the ground level, it triggers a sprinkler use.
So whatever the fire code and the fire department is going to require, and
We will.
fire.
We'll comply. We'll deal with the body engineer, and then for more input.
Do you have a utility plan yet?
No, we'll do that. We'll do that when we get to construction document proper.
Okay.
We can determine a lot of things at that point.
Okay, including the interior. You'll deal with the interior.
Yes, interior. Normally, the owner has to tell us his preferences. The body engineer will also tell us, let him know what we want to do.
Okay, so you'll work with him too, as necessary, along with the applicant.
Yes.
And are you familiar with the surrounding properties to this one? Like, have you seen the neighboring properties?
Yes, I've seen it. Our existing building is way back, stuck behind.
Sure, sure.
And there's building on both sides, So this is a tremendous freshening up of the space. That volume of space.
Is it a benefit or a detriment to the property?
It's a big benefit.
I had to get that on there somehow.
I'm surprised.
So going back to the elevation that we've marked as A1. The board engineer had asked if we could bring some samples of what the materials would look like, and unfortunately we couldn't get our hands on those for the hearing. But does that elevation, is that close to what it is it's going to look like in color and?
It is close, but there might be some variation, very minute variation.
And for the record, could you just explain again what each portion of that would be, the lower portion and then each side in the middle?
This is going to be hardy plank, then brick. We haven't decided yet if we're going to use full brick or veneer. It's going to be veneer, but thin brick or full brick. But whatever we use, it's going to be structurally sound, and it's going to be as close as possible to its color.
there be any charging stations or anything like that?
Cliff, I think he's required to put a NEMA 1450 in the
Yes,
garages. I think that, well, okay, this, maybe not. At some point, the UCC requires a 50 amp socket in garages.
Correct,
I might
okay.
be wrong on the application.
I just wanna make sure, no, I just.
I mean, listen, certainly I expect that there, if the board's so inclined to grant the, application, there would be compliance with any all state law requirements, you know, with regard to these issues. So it is what it is, if it applies, it applies, if it doesn't.
That's all, I'm just making a record.
Absolutely.
I wouldn't one of these 3 stories above an electric car.
Say that again? What'd you say?
I would not one of these 3 stories above an electric car.
Not now. But we're gonna knock on wood that that's gonna change. I don't have any more questions.
Anyone from the board have any questions on the testimony we just given?
Yeah, how are you gonna enforce that blue sky?
That's part and parcel of the application, we'll make that a condition. It's gonna look like that every day.
Charles, the light divides, are they internal to the windows, the casement windows, or they snap? How do you envision the light divides?
We're not really spoken to the manufacturer, because we have a lot of, there's gonna be a lot of inputs from the window supply manufacturer. Then we can determine finally it's gonna be what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's a nicer look in my opinion, if you can get it in between the panes, because if the snap-ons always break.
Okay, yeah, of course,
My
that's
opinion,
what
my
I want to, yeah, it looks better. I will depend on the owner and the engineer, whatever, so.
And I would encourage you, if you can go to 8 or 9 foot ceiling heights instead of 8, it just makes it feel better. Right now, he's proposing 8 foot ceiling heights in the second and third floors. And since there's some leeway on the height, if you can get the staircase to work, I think, in my opinion, 9 foot just feels better.
I understand what you're saying, it's something we can explore.
That could be actually better for us actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, as long as we're not exceeding.
Yeah.
Well, it's 2 feet, and say the mid, if you're saying the peak is 33, the mid's probably at 28. If you added 2 feet to that, you'd be at 30, you're still under the height.
We can
That's
explore.
what I'm saying.
No, I hear, and what I'm hearing from the applicant is that that's more beneficial anyway, I just don't wanna run afoul of the height requirement.
Right.
Without getting a variance.
I understand.
Right.
Thanks for saying that's much better.
I just think it's, I grew up in 8 foot ceiling height.
And you're very tall.
It gives a better.
Nine, it's the
That's
best.
why he has no hair, they're rubbing against the ceiling.
Good thing that I'm in jail.
No, you're right. So we'll be able to increase it to 9 feet?
Yeah,
To the extent possible.
I was gonna say, exactly, if we could incorporate it that way to the extent possible, and provided that it doesn't exceed the 35-foot height requirement.
Very good.
Sure the board be happy with it.
Well,
always
I
always worry about bumping my head.
Council, I always say, is the applicant agreeable to making the whole report in condition, compliance with a condition of approval except as revised in the course of the hearing?
Absolutely.
Very good. Okay, great.
So the fence depicted in the rendering there, that's the 6-foot fence, and it's gonna be reduced to 4 feet?
We're gonna reduce it to 4 feet.
Okay, all the,
But the requirements.
okay. For the front,
The front yard setback.
for the front and the back and all the way around?
Yes, whatever the, what is necessary to do.
The ordinance allows for a 6-foot solid, just on the front yard setback.
Okay.
So I think what Kara is saying, the applicant is in the front yard setback on the fence on the side, we're gonna reduce it to 4 feet and make it open, so it's not a solid to comply with the ordinance.
Is it typically graduated from 4 to 6? Like, I don't know what the board typically, 4 to 6 to 4, or just directly from 6 to 4, does that matter? I'm just kind of trying to get an idea. I know some boards like it to be graduated, so.
The optics look better graduated.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions from board members?
No.
Anybody from the audience have any questions on the testimony just given. Next.
I don't have any other witnesses here tonight. I would just quickly like to say, I submit to the board that this is a fairly simple application. We tried to present the best possible application to you, try to make it look as nice as possible. At the end of the day, we're going to bring this property into more compliance with what your ordinance says, and that's what the municipal land use law strives to do. That's what case law strives to do, to try to bring any non-compliant properties or structures into as best compliance with your ordinance as possible. I submit to the board that that's exactly what we've done. This is a permitted use. It's going to look as nice as it possibly can. We will definitely work with your board engineer and planner to make sure that all issues are addressed, including any stormwater management issues, and just ask that the board look favorably on the application.
And just so the board knows, the comments are the roll utilities on the ground, but the utility pole is about 3 feet to the west. So I don't know if PSC&G will allow that diagonal, so there might have to be an overhead overhead line. If PSC&G says we're not gonna run from that pole, I'm not suggesting that we do a drop hole just for that. So to the extent possible is where I'm saying on the utility, because I don't know if PSC&G will do that angle. Right, if they don't, that's overhead service, and that's the way it is, in my opinion.
What would the alternative be?
To put a short pole in between the two poles, and then run the power underground from that short pole, but you end up with another pole in the road, which aesthetically, in my opinion, adds more clutter.
Does the board believe that a prohibition should be put in, limiting the third floor of the attic, from, in other words, prohibiting it from becoming living space?
How tall is your attic up there?
Yeah, it's just for storage, you know, it's.
Yeah, but how tall is it? 5 feet?
Yeah, it's a little bit less than that.
Yeah, it's gonna be impossible.
So we would definitely agree with that condition. That's certainly not the intention.
That's fine now, as long as it's physically possible, there's no need
Well, maybe
to put any conditions.
Someone like to move, to close the public portion of this application?
So moved.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any comments, board?
Substantial improvement, thank you for doing it. Really needs it in that area, and it's a home run.
Thank you.
Other than maybe the architectural design, I wish that they had a little bit more, I don't know, something. It looks really boxy. Yeah, it is modern looking. That's just a personal preference, but no, it's a great plan, great project. Thank you.
Nice and neat. We've had that abandoned garage down there for many, many years. I was hoping it would be in a body shop or a gas station.
We had given it permission years ago to, and the body shop operated maybe a year. It's been vacant. But as you said, when we had the other application on the water at Stein's place, when we developed the R3 zone probably 25 years ago, it was to promote residential in that area. And the one thing that I regret is when we had the 3 houses coming for us over there, the motor vehicle place, and they wanted 4, and we didn't give them because we were working with the densities being used by the planning board, and we only allowed them to have the 3, which we had given them 4. That is an area in this town that is in transition, and it's hot property.
2005, got a resolution here, 2005, where it references Somerville collision, the auto body. The one I had here from 2000, this is 1990, I don't think this references it, but that one from
I think
2005.
that's a gas station at that time.
That is the place.
Gas, yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't have anything.
Yeah, I know. It's a repair shop, basically.
Yeah.
It's been closed for years, and this is a big improvement.
Yeah, this will be great.
Fairview Avenue is hot.
Well, if you want to, Fairview and gas out gas, then you need somebody to do something there. It'd be nice.
Yeah.
Need for more housing, that's a good idea.
Yeah, for sure.
Everyone else have anything else?
I have a question. I didn't see, is there gonna be 2 sewer lines, or is it gonna be 1 sewer line that both families will use?
I'll determine that with the engineer. He's the expert on that one.
Yeah, whatever.
Well,
Usually it's one, Stu, because
We only need one?
typically, if it's rental, it's one ownership. So typically, one ownership, one line. If somehow this is a condo, the problem, and Gary can speak to this, you have one lot and you break it up, it becomes I don't know how you do that with a single lot. Typically, you have to chop the lot up into subdivisions.
Unless you condoize it and do
Condo and all that.
Yeah.
To answer your question, I'm envisioning with the applicant, 1 sanitary sewer, because I'm envisioning one owner, whether it's rental or not, one owner owns the building. If that answers your question.
Yeah, I was just curious, the family impact on the sewer line.
Yeah,
If it's a requirement to have it separated.
Yeah,
Well, and also if it's gonna be rented, if the tenant will be billed individually or.
There was a question I had about reuse, which I'm sure the applicant will look at it, but the sewer system is now owned by New Jersey American, so we're gonna have to get some tie-in, some feedback on them, if it's a new lateral. Typically, I've always capped, the lateral's not being used, it's abandoned, we cap it at the main because it's infiltration, but I have to reach out to New Jersey American and see what their position on that is.
And the engineer, as the applicant testified, is on board. It's the same company that did the survey, so as soon as we get to that point, they'll be happy to look into it.
Any other comments or questions from the board? Someone like to move the application?
I'll move. Second.
Second, any further discussion? Clerk, what do we have as far as,
Only conditions that I can discern from the record are the applicant will utilize, to the extent possible, will increase the ceiling height of the project, of the units to 9 feet. The applicant will comply with the coal report, except that is revised in the record. I believe that is, the sprinkler, sprinkling is something, it's a regulatory compliance, so it isn't really necessary to make it a condition of approval. So I believe that's it. Those are the 2. The only other question, we answered that, we're not gonna have a restriction on the attic against, living space.
Yeah.
Put it in.
Sorry. Yeah, again, we have no problem doing that.
Yeah.
And then just to clarify with regard to the 9 feet, again, you heard testimony from the applicant that that's certainly more beneficial. If for some reason from a construction standpoint, which again, I have no idea, but if that increases the height more than 35 feet, then obviously we can't do that. So, but barring that, I don't see any issue.
Yeah, I think it was to the extent possible. If you
Yeah,
can't do
okay.
it, you're not gonna be locked into it.
Yep,
I
okay,
think best
Right.
efforts.
yep, okay,
That all right. Council, best efforts is all right?
that's fine,
Yeah.
yep.
it's moved and seconded? Roll call, please.
Chair Adair?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Ms. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Mr. Dennison?
Yes.
And Mr. Lewis?
It's carried.
Congratulations.
Thank you, everyone, really appreciate it. It's been a long endeavor and
Coordinate the preparation of the resolution with your office. It may be, because our next meeting is coming up in like 13 days, maybe the December meeting, but we'll do the best we can.
I appreciate it. If I can help in any regard, let me know.
Kara, how's it feel sitting on that side versus over there?
No, no, well, first of all, I don't understand why you guys split. I'm over here, why are you?
Right.
You like it over there?
Good that way,
We may have to try that.
I'll tell you why.
good this way since I've been on it.
Has it? Okay.
Because Chair, the manager, didn't like all the folded heads.
Too much glare over here?
It was glare, because it was, the mayor was here. So it was shine, so we brought this all up.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
Thank Karen.
You too.
All right. Next application. You out of here?
I'm out of here.
Okay.
Yes.
No.
Next item.
Okay, next application.
Evening, council.
Evening.
Good to see you.
Okay, hi, Michael Salvaggi, Labor Salvaggi. On behalf of 87 West End Somerville LLC, this is for the property lot 5 and block 129, having an address of 87 West End Somerville. It's kind of funny, your conversation out of the box today about the change in the resolution, they have to come back. We're the poster child for that. We were here back in December of 2021, and at that point, you guys had adopted a resolution. At the preceding hearing, there was a representation made about an attic space in the building. And just to refresh your recollection, some that may not have been here, the proposal back then was to take a existing structure that's it was in the PO-R zone district, and convert that what was formerly a professional office into a home for the developmentally disabled. That job started, and while the work was being done, they went up in the attic and said, hey, you know, those older Victorians have a larger attic space, and there was a decision made to make it available for the residents, not as a bedroom, but just kind of more hangout space for them. What ended up happening, to make a long story short, somebody looked at the resolution and said, well, wait a minute, there was a representation made that you couldn't use the attic. So hence, we're back here in front of you to amend that approval to allow the use of the attic. So what I'd like to do is just two witnesses tonight, Wendy on behalf of, she was here last time, on behalf of the applicant, and then Bill Byrne, who was our architect planner.
You raise your right hand, please. You solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be the truth, so help you God. Please state your name and spell your last name for the record.
Wendy Netherland, last name is Mandelbaum.
Thank you very much, Ms. Madeline. Counselor, your witness?
When you were here last time, correct?
Yes.
All right. And what's, just to refresh the board's recollection, what's your position with the applicant?
I'm the executive director of Hudson Hill.
Okay. And Hudson Hill runs,
We'll run the group home.
Runs the group, okay. And we'll cut right to the chase. What was the decision made about the attic, and why did you guys want to, after the fact, build that space out?
Right, so I guess during construction, it was uncovered that it was a pretty large space up there that we could really use just as an extra, kind of like a bonus room for extra recreational space for the second floor only. It's not for extra living space. We're not allowed to have extra living, like we're not allowed to have any more residents, so it's not a bedroom, like there's no bathroom, there's no anything up there. So
And you would agree to make that a condition, that it not be a living space?
yes.
And what's the proposal in terms of, how do you envision that being built out? Just, walls, carpeting, what?
So just walls and carpet, and just probably put a TV up there, just an extra hangout room or recreational space.
All right, so it doesn't increase the density, you can't have more residents there?
No.
You're not putting a bathroom up there?
No.
All right, and no bedroom, correct?
Correct.
I don't have anything further from Wendy.
Anybody from the board have any questions as yet?
What's the size of the space?
Our architect probably better address that.
Okay.
It's not my favorite.
It's
It's only access from the second floor, right? So the second floor residence will, and it's crafts, so you envision.
You know what, the second floor is primarily gonna be mail, so it's just gonna be an extra, like, TV room, that's basically it. Our second, because we're a licensed group home, we have to run as a licensed group home, so the second floor is not allowed to just come up whenever they wanna come up, so it is primarily for the, did I say that wrong?
No, the first floor.
The second floor, the first floor
Right.
doesn't come up, it's primarily for the second floor.
I need to ask two things. First of all, since this is a December 2021 approval, I just want you to confirm that you complied with all conditions of approval of that prior approval.
You have building permits?
Okay.
Okay. And if the board were inclined to grant this application, will the applicant continue to comply with the conditions of that resolution?
Yes.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions? No?
Bill Byrne now is gonna testify on it. You can steal that easel. And Bill is gonna be sworn as our architect, he's also a professional planner.
I've worked with Mr. Byrne a number of times in the
Yes,
past.
we were commenting about that when we were waiting to be here.
Good to see you again, Mr. Byrne.
Yeah, same.
Please raise your right hand. You solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be the truth, so help you God.
Yes, I do.
Please state your name and spell your last name for the record.
Sure, it's William Byrne, B-Y-R-N-E. I'm a licensed architect in the state of New Jersey and New York and Virginia as well. My license is currently in good standing. I've been accepted as an expert in the field of architecture by this board and many others in Morris County.
Right, you also have a degree, a license in professional planning, correct?
I do. I actually have a degree in professional planning from Seton Hall University. I took the exam and have practiced as a professional planner, principally an architect, but I certainly have provided planning testimony for many applications, and again, been accepted as an expert in the field of planning.
Good, we'll accept them.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Bill, why don't we first just start with the space itself and how that is going to be built out.
Sure. Michael, do we need to mark this?
You know what, I think we submitted it, but his highlighting and everything wasn't part of the original submission, so
Let's call it
we'll make it
A1.
A1.
And that's correct. This is a duplicate copy of what had been submitted, but I think based on the report that I've received from Mr. Cole and the suggestion that we provide some documentation, some calculations on the actual floor space up here based on the ordinance requirements, I took the opportunity to highlight those areas, and I'll get to that in just a minute, but I think it would be more clear for the board if I can elaborate on that. But again, just to back up a moment, this space that we're proposing to complete as living space has always been there. There's no proposed change to the exterior. Obviously, the work on the building has been done in compliance with the previous approvals. It is just about finished at this point. I think we're really just waiting for the final inspection to see how which is scheduled for the next 2 weeks. The exterior of the building has been completely restored. I think it's a substantial improvement. I think we really saw this through, and I think it really shines at this point. I think that the exterior has really been improved significantly. So again, as Ms. Mendelbaum mentioned, the space on this level was always accessible. There was a full stairway that leads from the second floor up to this third floor. It's a full width stairway, comfortable stair. This floor always included a full floor. It was, as most homes in this era, it was just decked over completely. You could easily walk around there, and there were windows really on 4 sides. There's a beautiful turret detail, windows on the left, windows in the front, the right, and the rear. And from what I can ascertain when this was originally built, part of this upper level was used. It may have been for a linen press or for storage, but there was some parts of this floor that were used, I believe since the original construction, but I don't know that it's been used any time recently. So again, when we had first come to the board for our original approvals, it wasn't apparent that it was a space that would necessarily provide a significant benefit to the residents, and our thought was that we would incorporate mechanical equipment on this level, so it really wasn't contemplated that we would use this space. But as the construction developed, as we went in and demolished a lot of the finishes so we could restore the building, it was determined that there's a significant amount of height, and it's actually a pretty cool space up there. It's a nice size space, it's pretty dramatic, especially with all the windows. And as part of the restoration work, as part of the conversion to residence, we also were required to put a sprinkler system in the building. And as such, we have sprinkler lines that ran throughout this upper level around the perimeter. So what happens when you have a sprinkler system is you have water. And at the point where this attic was, when we took this building over, it wasn't heated space, it wasn't insulated space. So then it was determined, well, we've got these water lines, and now we have these HVAC lines running around that perimeter. We need to insulate that. So because we couldn't allow the sprinkler system to freeze, we had to provide insulation in this whole roof structure, which we did. So at some point, we sort of all looked at each other and said, gosh, this is basically nice space. Now it's insulated space, it's sprinklered, it's essentially conditioned for the mechanical equipment that's there. Gosh, it could be a nice benefit for the residents to have another little bonus space up here. And so really that's what brings us to the table today. Again, as mentioned, we're not creating another bedroom, it doesn't create additional occupants here, it doesn't create really any more density to the building, and it doesn't create any changes to the exterior of the building. So visually, there's really no apparent change being proposed. But again, the feeling is that it does create a nice space for the residents. So, having said that, Mr. Cole, I think as usual, has gone through and created a very nice outline of the application and had a couple of questions that I'd like to address. And I think I can go through these fairly quickly. Under his building modifications comments of the architecture, he states that it appears that the attic living space can only be accessed by the second floor residents, and that is true. Essentially, the stairway goes to the kitchen area of the second floor, and based on DDD requirements, we had to keep separation between that first floor unit and the second floor unit, so there's no interior access to any of those units. Obviously, if there's a function they're having together, they can go outside and come in, but each of them stand alone, and under the construction code, that's done properly. But this stairway exists, we're not proposing any changes, and again, that would provide access to this level. Sheet number 10, the architectural drawings indicate that the attic living space is 560 square feet. The living space is labeled craft and bonus room, and he's asked to provide testimony to the actual use, and I would say that Ms. Mendelbaum has done that. Again, it would be for use of the residents, TV room, and just an extra congregation space. Item number 3, which I think is somewhat relevant because it was touched upon in the last application. A half story is defined as a space under a sloping roof that has a line of intersection of the roof and wall face not more than 3 feet above the floor level. So again, to define a half story, which is what we're proposing here, that provision, what that essentially says is that where the roof line, the main roof line intersects the wall face, that height can't exceed 3 feet. And why that's relevant is in a situation if we were to build a home, say it was a ranch home, and we had walls on the side that were, say, 5 or 6 feet, and we put a roof atop that, well, that really is not what the ordinance is intending, right? They're saying basically, look, if you have a situation where you're creating space within an attic or very close to within an attic space, and you want some living space in there, that provision sort of sets parameters where that can exist. And so I think that makes sense. And in our case, the main roof structure around the entire building essentially comes down to the wall plane. So it's that height is less than 3 feet because it's basically 0. The second provision of that definition states that space, possible floor area centering on 5 feet or less occupies at least 40% of the total floor area of the story directly below. And again, that's a sort of a play off of the UCC code as well. There's a code similar to that defines half story. This one's defined a little bit differently. But basically what that says is that if you take the height of this area at 5 foot or less, that amount of square footage has to be less than 40% of the floor directly below. So basically it's saying, look, if you have 1,000 square feet below and we're proposing 400 square feet up here, we meet that requirement. Basically it's less than a half story. So in our case, I went, recalculated the heights based on that definition, and essentially what we have is a floor area of the floor directly below, which is the second floor, of 2,131 square feet. And just for clarity, that essentially represents this outline, and this outline represents the perimeter of the floor below.
and again, that's 2,131 square feet. The area of this floor with headroom of 5 foot or less totals 1,398 square feet. So 1,398 of that 2,131 square feet is less than 5 foot. And so what that does is that yields a percentage of 65%. And again, as the ordinance states, it has to measure at least 40%. So clearly we're well beyond that point. So without even being close, basically we meet the definition as a half story, in which case we're really not seeking a C variance in this case. We would simply be seeking a variance for the FAR, which is a result of added square footage. Item number 4. The drawings do not indicate how the attic space will be heated and whether air conditioning will be provided. And again, with the understanding or anticipation that we may be able to receive approval for this, we've designed a mechanical system for this upper level to accomplish the extra volume necessary to heat and cool the space. Number 5, the applicant should provide testimony regarding the finishes of the attic. Ms. Mendelbaum, I think, has already done that, but again, the idea would be that you provide drywall on the walls, carpeting on the floors. Simple. And item number 6, the attic over the second floor doesn't appear to connect to the portion of the attic which is supposed to be finished. The applicant should provide testimony regarding how the attic is accessed. And so I think that question refers to the space above the proposed addition. And there is an attic above this. This has a gable roof. This attic is not nearly as large and substantial as what's here, and it's actually not accessible from this attic. What we did was, this portion of the roof behind the finished attic is actually flat, or nearly flat. And so to get to this attic, which has no mechanical equipment and really just a couple of lights for code, we put an access door accessible from the roof. So to get to that attic, in the event that we would need to do that, we exit through a window, which I've done by the way. And in fact, we just come in through this trapdoor, and that's worked well for us. So again, there's no anticipation that could ever be finished. It's not even accessible from anything but the roof.
Then that space will be separated off, by a door essentially, and.
Correct. There's no internal connection. There's no way to get between those spaces. So the only way to get to this attic is to go out onto the roof and then to come through this door, which is on the roof, to enter into this space.
Very good. Just want that on the record.
Sure. Sure. All right. So essentially that covers Mr. Cole's points regarding the architecture and hopefully an explanation as to what we're proposing here. And so again, as stated in the report, we are seeking an FAR variance. The building addition of this square footage pushes beyond the FAR. I think we're going to be proposing a number of 27.3%, where 25 is required. You just confirm that with Mr. Cole's report. That's correct. So the maximum FAR permitted is 25%, and this additional square footage brings us up to 27.3%.
Slightly over.
So it's a small percentage. So again, just to touch on the points brought up. So in this case, for the board to be able to approve this variance, we have to determine special reasons why this variance relief can be granted. And in cases involving FAR relief, the applicant not need to show that the site is particularly suited for the more intensive development. Rather, such an applicant must show that the site can accommodate the properties associated with a floor area larger than permitted by ordinance. So again, in this case, although we're seeking an FAR variance, we're not effectively changing the visual appearance of the building from the outside. Furthermore, we're not increasing the occupants of the building. We're not creating a situation where we have more demand on parking. We're not effectively changing the site in any way. We're just providing those occupants that are already accommodated by the parking with some additional space. So again, I think that satisfies that requirement.
Also, too, Bill, if I could interrupt, I mean, this was deemed at the initial application as being an inherently beneficial use.
It was.
And wouldn't you say that this additional living area for the development of disabled residents further enhances that inherently beneficial use?
Without question. I mean, these folks all have nice bedroom suites, but this gives the common area the ability for them to get together, and for sure it creates a better quality of life for the residents.
Even it seems to rain every Saturday now, so.
Very good point.
Wish I had the space in my house.
There is case law out there that indicates that a use accessory to an inherently beneficial use essentially inherits the same, it gets the cloak
Yeah.
of the inherently beneficial use.
And-
That's, from a legal standpoint, you're correct.
And I agree with Cliff. And you said a moment ago, you didn't necessarily articulate it, but in terms of the negative criteria, you know, you talked about no additional parking, no additional density. I mean, we really, you know, do we do anything to impact the neighborhood, you know, or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, visually, again, we come into FAR variances frequently in areas that are, well developed, and towns that have instituted these, standards, Summit, Madison area, Storm Park, where I work all the time. And this FAR is just driving these neighborhoods. And the biggest concern is basically referred to as the McMansion law, right? Because people come in and they knock down these little cottages and they put these things and they go wall to wall. Every inch of the envelope is taken up. And so realistically, I think the purpose of an FAR variance is to really protect the streetscape, to really try to not overwhelm the neighborhood with just big and out of scale development. And again, to Mike's point, this isn't visually changing anything. This building has existed this way for 100 years or more, and we're really not proposing any change. So again, I think the point that the FAR variance, is technically needed, but I don't think that it is really effectively, going against what the intent of the ordinance was.
Like, are we amending the prior approval or approving this on its own?
This is, in my opinion, it's a new application.
It's a new application.
Okay.
So going toward the negative criteria again, I think, for special reasons, we take into account the definition and the purposes of zoning, which are the following. I think there are a couple, points on the zoning that we are enhancing here. Item number 5, to promote the establishment of appropriate population densities and concentrations that will contribute to the well-being of persons, neighborhoods, communities, and regions, and preservation of the environment. And again, I think there's no question, we've touched upon that we certainly are furthering that point.
Yeah, and again, I think the inherently beneficial nature of the use automatically satisfies the positive criteria.
Mr. Chairman, just so you know, the board can take judicial notice of the previous application and disposition and the facts offered therein. Even though this is a new application, the previous approval is evidentiary, so it shouldn't be, the applicant can refer to it as it sees fit.
Yeah, and along those lines, I mean, the board found last time the negative criteria had been, we had satisfied that. This doesn't do anything to jeopardize that thing.
No, there's nothing here that compromises that or really changes that.
You're using the same number of people and same number of residents, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You're adding a recreation or whatever it is, computer room or something.
I think you're in R4, correct? R4, condition 1, use group?
Yes.
So you're limited to what, 9 was that? 9 patients? Doesn't reflect on the staff,
I
right?
think it's 15.
That's correct.
Yeah, the license for this is 4 on the first floor form.
Sorry, 8.
4.
There are for restriction to 9 patients or 9 residents.
Oh, yeah, plus staff, I think it's
Plus-
15 staff.
Yeah, with staff, doesn't mean, it says there's no restriction on staff.
But we're not proposing to change that.
I don't think most of the board members were here last time. Even I was here. Been a long time ago.
You're OG now.
As I recall, I think that was one of your first applications back after COVID.
We were happy to be there.
Yeah.
In more ways than one.
Because I remember coming back, yeah. Anyway, we don't have anything further. We're certainly, Wendy and Bill are available for questions.
So I do have a question about staffing. So is it 24/7?
Yes.
And do they sleep over or they're just working, 12-hour shifts?
We're staffed 24/7, no sleeping.
No sleeping, so they're up the whole time?
Correct.
How many people do you have during the day?
During the day, most of our residents go to day program, but we'll have one staff member on all day, just in case.
On site all the time?
Correct.
You haven't opened yet, right? You're still,
No, we haven't opened
you're
yet.
still working on it.
Looks great, by the way.
Thank you. We're excited, very excited.
I would recommend to the board, consistent with previous applications, that we make Mr. Cole's report, the contents therein, a condition of approval, reflecting, revisions that may have been made on the record this evening. Mr. Stallergy, is that an issue for you?
Not at all,
Okay,
not at
very
all.
good. I recommend that to the board as a condition of approval.
One question about this, the plan, the shaded areas or the areas in your drawing are areas of what?
So the prior submission I had completed before I contact was the areas of the floor space that was less than 7 feet. Again, and that would pertain to the classification of it being determined a half story under the construction code. What was highlighted though is the amendment to that line, we placed that line at a height of 5 foot. And therefore, that 5 foot line is what allowed me to create the computation of the exact comparison of that 40%.
Anyone else from the board? That's your presentation?
That is it, Mr. Chairman.
Someone like to move for the, just go from formality. Anybody from the audience have any questions or comments? All right, hearing none. Someone want to move for, close the public portion of this application?
Second.
Move in second, all in favor?
Aye.
Board, which pleasure?
I think it's a good idea. It enhances clearly a beneficial use.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't do anything to the neighborhood. The building is definitely an improvement. My only question is, I used to shovel the snow there. Do you still need me?
You work cheap.
The only conditions, Mr. Chairman, are compliance with the code report and continued compliance with the terms and conditions of the 2021 approval. You don't have any other restrictions as I say, we're not using, the applicant has delineated how the space is going to be used, and there's no reason to place further restrictions on that.
I can't believe it's been almost 2 years.
Yeah.
We've been busy since we came back from COVID.
Oh, yeah. So have I.
A lot of water under a lot of applications.
Yep, it's goes by very, very fast. Life is like a roll of toilet paper. The first you get to the end, the faster it goes. It's the truth. Someone like to move the application?
I'll move.
Move?
Second.
Second, any further discussion? Roll call.
Chairman Adair,
Yes.
Mr. Allen,
Yes.
Ms. Carpenter,
Yes.
Mr. McLaughlin,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mr. Flores,
Yes.
Mr. Alvarez.
Yes.
Kenny?
Thank you, guys, appreciate it. Happy Halloween.
Mr. Salman, I'll coordinate the rest. As I said.
Yes, I know, yeah.
I'll do my very best.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing, and I don't know if you guys would, is the building department would issue the permit to do the work up there, even if the resolution's still pending. I don't know what your practice
You
is.
can do that, whatever you do is at your own risk.
It's at our own risk, you don't have to worry about it.
I see no problem.
I don't see a problem.
Okay.
And it's Johnny doing.
Okay, we'll deal with that.
We don't have an issue.
No,
I don't have an issue.
definitely, I don't have an issue. You understand the restrictions.
My father would be.
Any other business to come before the board?
No.
So we want to move for adjournment? Move second, all in favor? Next week.
Thank you for the, maybe, give that a try, give that a try.
Yeah, oh yeah, it was good.